Hello everybody, Dr. Ben again. Today we're going to talk to you about eating real food. And I don't like to use the word diet too much because that has so many negative connotations to it. And people think they're getting on a diet, so that means they'll be getting off a diet at some point. So kind of get that word out of your mind. That word's been so perverted and means so many different things and brings so many negative emotions. So let's not even use that word today. We need to just talk about eating real food, or what I call God food, not man food. Dr. Pompa talks about that a lot. Eat food that God made. And if he made it, then good. It's good for you. It's beneficial. It's going to give nutrients to your body, and that's what we need. However, it's a little tricky because man has taken a lot of God's food and changed it, altered it. So you've got to kind of analyze this food a little bit and think about it a little bit and see, has man touched it? And if man has touched it, then you need to look at what he did to it and see, was this something beneficial for your health, or was it beneficial for some other reason, like the producer's pocketbook maybe? And typically the answer is going to be it was not beneficial for you. Whatever man did to this food was not to benefit you. So that rule of eat God food, not man food, sounds kind of easy, but really it's hard in our culture, in our day and age, because the food's been altered so much. One prime example of this is the wheat. As a lot of y'all have read Wheat Belly, and if you haven't, I'd recommend the book Wheat Belly by William Davis, cardiologist out of Wisconsin. And he explains how this wheat, the ancient God wheat, I call it, einkorn, or the Kamen flour is an ancient version of that wheat. This old wheat, it stood 4 foot tall, and its glycemic index, which is how quickly your blood sugar will rise, wasn't too horrible. The glycemic index was pretty low, which is what you want. However, when the wheat got changed in the early 1970s, Dr. Norman Borlaug won the Nobel Prize for what he did with the wheat. He hybridized it in a manner that he changed it from the ancient wheat that was about 4 foot tall wheat. Now it's dwarf wheat, 18 inches tall. The yields went up 10 times per acre. You make more wheat per acre. Drought resistant, wind resistant, so all this good stuff for the producer. And that's why he won the Nobel Prize, because now we could feed the world. He solved the world hunger with this new wheat. However, another thing that we didn't realize then, but we now know, the starch content of that wheat changed such that the amylopectin, the particular kind of starch that is very prominent in this new wheat, this starch changes the blood sugar very, very quickly. The amylase in your saliva breaks down this starch so quickly that it's raising your blood sugar within about 4 seconds of you eating that whole wheat bread. You're raising your blood sugar as fast as eating table sugar. So the wheat was changed to produce more. However, it raises your sugar so much more quickly. Plus the gluten, the main protein in wheat. These are new gluten proteins now from the 1970s on. And these proteins are foreign proteins to the body. We don't recognize them. So some people mount an immune response to these proteins because it sees it as a foreign protein. So there's a number of things that are not beneficial for your health when you consume so much wheat. And most of us in America are eating a lot of this wheat because we're eating stuff that's in a package, coming out of a package. Even if you think it's healthy, like cereal, it's still this processed wheat. It's jacking your blood sugar up very, very quickly. So that's one example of how man has changed or altered God food. So when we say eat God food, not man food, it gets a little bit tricky. So that's what we're going to do today, is to kind of give you some basic guidelines to go by when you're eating. There's so many, I'll use the word diet again that I said I wasn't going to use, but there's so many diets out there, and there's ones that are beneficial, we know are beneficial, help you lose weight, they drop inflammation, reduce diseases. Paleo is one of them. The Bali Diet that we're about to talk about is one of them. Mediterranean diet. There's some others, but the common theme through all these diets is, number one, it's real food. You eat real food, not a food-like processed substance, which is 65% of what Americans eat today is a processed food-like substance. It's out of a package. It's been altered. So regardless of what you call it, the Weston A. Price diet and all these really good diets, it's the same basic common theme. You'll find a few variations here and there. Dr. Pompa has the cellular healing diet, but you'll see that same basic theme throughout. all of these diets are a low inflammatory diet because inflammation is at the root of all diseases, and we'll explain that here in a minute. So I like the Bali Diet, B-A-L-I, partly because of that acronym. It's easy for you to remember, why you're eating what you're eating. The B stands for basic, the A stands for antifungal, antioxidant, and the L-I stands for low insulin. So B-A-L-I. We'll run through each letter of this acronym and explain what it means, and then we'll give you some examples of some foods. But again, think of this as more general guidelines. We're not trying to put you under some law that you've got to eat only this, this, and this. Understand there's freedom in this, and there's grace in this. Those of you who are sicker, you may choose to, or when you come see us, we may encourage you to get more restrictive on a very anti-inflammatory diet, like 0 grain, 0 fruit for maybe 30 days, because we want to drop your blood sugar and your insulin spike to nil. So sometimes, depending on your health status, we may be more aggressive than others. So this is more just an overall basic guideline for sort of when you're in health maintenance mode, I would say. So we'll start with the B, basic on the Bali. Alkaline versus acidic. You may have heard about this. You want your bloodstream, or the body will make your bloodstream more alkaline. pH comes from 0 to 14 on the pH scale. 7 is neutral. Above 7 is basic or alkaline. Below 7 is acidic. And if you've seen some other videos, you realize that inside the stomach, we want to be acidic. We want the pH to be very acidic, like a 1 to 2. That helps digest your food. It helps kill bugs, germs that are in your gut. So inside the stomach, we want acidity, but in your body, in your bloodstream, and all your other fluids, we want to be more alkaline, and your body's going to do all it can to keep you in this narrow pH range that is a little more on the alkaline side, like around 7.4, 7.5, 7.3, that range. Unfortunately, the standard American diet that's full of processed grains, sweeteners, sugar mostly, high fructose corn syrup, anything that ends in OSE. And if they pull the sugar out, they're putting artificial sweetener in, typically like NutraSweet, which is aspartame, or Splenda, which is sucralose. And we won't get into those today. They're very damaging to your health, so I don't recommend artificial sweeteners. But there'll be a grain, a sweetener, and then an oil. Usually it's a vegetable oil of some sort that's, again, not beneficial for your health. It's a man-made oil. We'll get into the good oils in a minute. But that standard American diet that's high in grain and sugar, that grain and sugar pushes you more acidic. It acidifies the bloodstream. And therefore, the body's got to work real hard to try to pull you back to basic or more alkaline. Cancer cells, viruses, West Nile virus, all viruses, bacteria, fungus, all these critters, all these germs, and cancer prefer a more acidic environment. So when you eat foods that cause you to be more alkaline, then you'll have less chance of getting sick. Every little virus that comes along, you always get it. Well, it could be because you're more acidic, or your body's expending all of its energy trying to keep you more alkaline. So that's one reason we want to try to not eat the standard American diet, because it acidifies us. Osteoporosis is a great example. The countries that drink the most milk have the most osteoporosis. I have that graph somewhere. We'll try to maybe get it online. And the reason is milk is one of the most acidifying foods, and everyone thinks, well, there's calcium in there, and there is some calcium, but there's also a lot of phosphorus, and that competes with the calcium and decreases the absorption of the calcium. But overall, because the milk changes into sugar so quickly, it acidifies you, and therefore your body will pull calcium out of the bone into the blood to try to keep that more alkaline. So we want to eat foods that cause us to be more basic. Those are primarily your vegetables. Eat a lot of veggies. And the colorful, the more color you can get, the better. So purples and reds and yellows and greens and all these different colors is where you want to be. In particular, the darker colors like the purple. You can find purple cabbage, for instance, purple cauliflower, purple carrots. The original carrot that God made was purple, not orange. The orange ones are okay. They just have a little more sugar content to them. But the dark berries, blueberries, blackberries, cranberries, these dark berries also help push more to the alkaline side. And that's why you'll see on that Bali list of foods that you can find on our website, all the different foods that'll push you more basic or alkaline. So load up on the veggies. I'm all about clean meats. It's fine to eat meats. I'm not saying be vegetarian, although it's okay if some of your meals are vegetarian. It's totally fine. But you know, if there's a salad, you don't have to make it just a little tiny side salad in a little bowl just because there's a little salad bowl. Load your whole plate up with the salad, put the steak on top or the salmon on top of it, but get those greens in for sure. And if you can't get the greens in, think about a green drink. Green Vibrance is one. Food Matters has a really good one. And there's lots of different green powders that are excellent. So eat foods that are more basic. Cancer, viruses, and bacteria love acidic environments. We don't want that. Moving on to the A. A stands for antifungal, anti-inflammatory. As you recall, if you haven't watched the introductory video, I'd recommend watching it, or one of the other videos we'll have on our website is dealing with the gut, your probiotics and your gut health. But real quick, down in the intestines, we've got trillions of bugs. 10 to 1. We got 10 times more bugs in us than we do human cells. We're full of critters, bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungus. Now, most of these guys are bacteria. Most of them are beneficial bacteria, probiotics we call them. However, we, with our standard American diet, kill the probiotics off. They're killed by antibiotics. Antibiotics are in the non-organic meats, so the chicken, the beef, the milk is full of antibiotics. If you take antibiotics, you know, routinely for upper respiratory infection, sinus infection, bladder infection, whatever, you're knocking out your good probiotics. Splenda, the artificial sweetener, kills 50% of your probiotics. Chlorine in the water, birth control pills, number of things that kill the probiotics. Watch another video for details. But when you kill off the good guys, that leaves an open, fertile ground where other opportunistic bugs can start to grow and really multiply like crazy and just explode in population. One of the primary ones that'll do this is fungus or yeast. And the reason why I say it's the primary one that overgrows is because it lives off sugar. And the average American eats a pound of sugar every 3 days. And then the grains, I mentioned the wheat, turns into sugar so quickly. So we're feeding fungus fertilizer all the time to the gut, killing off our good guys, fertilizing the bad guys. So we get an overgrowth of yeast or fungus. They move into the body, to the liver, throughout the body. It's distributed throughout the body, into the skin, the joints, the lining of your arteries, various places throughout the body. That triggers the immune system to turn on and fight. So we want to eat foods that have antifungal chemicals already built into them. A plant's worst nightmare is fungus, and a plant doesn't have an immune system. So God gave these plants chemicals that kill fungus. The Dr. Roby Mitchell, who came up with the Bali eating plan, he went to the lab. He's a PhD and an MD, and he went to the lab and basically he pureed all these different foods like sweet potato and purple potato and cilantro and garlic and just all the different foods. And he plated them on a petri dish that he had grown candida yeast on the petri dish, put a little drop of this food, and he'd go back in a couple of days and see and measure the zone of clearance. When you have a petri dish plated with yeast, you put a drop of food in there, say half a teaspoon of sweet potatoes, then you go back and look and see how much of that yeast is dead around that sweet potato. And so all the different foods that have antifungal chemicals are the ones he put on the Bali eating list. The one that have asterisks next to them are kind of the superfoods. They have a whole lot of antifungal chemicals built into them. So that's the A, antifungal. If we keep these critters in check, keep that population low, then your immune system won't be revved up, fighting all the time, trying to knock them back down, and therefore your inflammation will be reduced. Google the word inflammation plus any disease you want, and you'll see the connection between inflammation and disease. Well, inflammation comes from your immune system being turned on. What turns on an immune system? Germs. Toxins can do it too, but germs are the big thing. The primary germ is this. And of course your immune system will turn on if someone has the flu and they cough in your face, or strep throat and they cough it into your face. Your immune system turns on acutely for that, to kill it, and then it calms down. But your immune system can be chronically turned on, day after day, week after week, month after month. And we can identify this through the blood work that we do and through your symptoms. But this chronic inflammatory process is what leads to so many different symptoms that we call diseases. So keep the critters in check. Eat your medicine. That's the foods we'll get into in a minute. The other part of the A, antioxidant. Everybody knows about this. Take antioxidants like vitamin E and vitamin C and some other antioxidants. And turns out taking high doses of these antioxidants is not always beneficial. There needs to be balance, and the best balance is through what our Creator designed. I mean, you can't outdo God, and He knows what He's doing when it comes to keeping our bodies maintained. So when you eat the foods that have antioxidants, they're in a food complex. They've got other phytochemicals in there. Phyto meaning plant, chemical just meaning chemical. There's other chemicals that we haven't identified as far as they're not a vitamin, they're not a mineral, they're just in this other broad category. When you eat the food, it has antioxidants in it along with the other phytochemicals. They work together as a team, and they help bring down some of that oxidative stress. Oxidation, you can think of it kind of like when you cut an apple down the middle and you just lay it out on the counter and come back in 5 minutes, kind of brown. That's oxidation. You know, your rusty lawnmower outside, if you leave it out in the rain, it gets rusty. It's the same thing, that's oxidation. Oxidation occurs inside of us too. We can kind of rust from the inside out. And it's part of the byproduct of the inflammatory, excuse me, the inflammatory response. So to keep oxidation down, you eat foods that have antioxidants built into them. That's what these foods have. The last part here, LI. LI stands for low insulin. Real quick, insulin is not your friend, really. I mean, it's a hormone, and it's a hormone we need. When that insulin hormone clicks into its receptor, then basically a doorway opens up that lets your blood sugar, the sugar that's in your blood, the glucose in your blood, to get out of the blood and into the cell where it's needed as fuel for the cell to run and function. So insulin's important to keep that blood sugar going into the cell. Here's the problem. As we eat processed grains, and really any grains, and as we eat sugar, our blood sugar spikes quickly. For instance, I used to start my day with a bowl of cereal that was made from grain, 4 different grains. So that grain is spiking my sugar. And then I used skim milk in that bowl of cereal because I thought skim milk was healthy. And there's nothing left in skim milk but what changes right into sugar. So I was spiking my sugar with the milk. I'd drink a glass of OJ with that healthy cereal. Glass of OJ, that's nothing but pure sugar also. I don't recommend any juice except for a particular kind I'll show you in a minute. Any juice pretty much that you buy at the store is just pure sugar. Now if you eat an entire orange, you're getting the fiber and the other nutrients in there that kind of slow down that sugar rise. But with juice, you're just spiking it straight away. That's what we would tell our diabetics, you know, when their sugar crashed because they gave too much insulin or they did their insulin they didn't eat and their sugar crashed. Drink some OJ. I mean, every doctor and nurse knows this in the hospital. Drink some OJ to spike that sugar back up quickly. And then I would have a banana on top of that cereal. And bananas are okay. They're a God food. However, they're a tropical fruit. Bananas, pineapples, oranges, these tropical fruits have more sugar in them. And these, back in the day, would just be seasonal fruits that we could only get in the tropics. It's not something we would eat every day all year long, a few hundred years ago. But I was eating a banana every single morning. And now I eat a banana maybe once a week because it's a more sugary fruit. The point is, the cereal, the milk, the banana, and the orange juice was spiking my sugar very, very quickly. First thing in the morning, right out of the box, I was spiking my sugar. So the pancreas, which is an organ right here in your tummy, it monitors your blood sugar basically, and it starts making insulin. Well, the pancreas goes a little nuts because you went from 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, basically, like a sports car. You elevate the blood sugar so quickly that the insulin spike, corresponding insulin spike, kind of overshoots it. You produce so much insulin because of the rapid rate of rise. So now your blood sugar is crashing because you produce so much insulin. You crash that blood sugar, and then the insulin crashes down with it. So now a couple hours after I ate that cereal, banana, OJ, and milk, I'm hungry. I'm looking around the clinic for a candy bar or peanut butter crackers or a donut or something because I'm hungry. So then I eat a little peanut butter cracker that's made from grains, and maybe drink some grapefruit juice because I think that's good. Well, that's pure sugar too. So I do another spike, I do another insulin spike, then I crash, and it's time for lunch, and I have a whole wheat bread sandwich. Here we go again. And at supper, I have some spaghetti, and here we go again. That's the glycemic roller coaster. Your insulin is spiking, and your blood sugar's crashing, and all day long. Instead of that picture, we need to just flatline that insulin spike. That's because when you spike insulin, not only does it drive your hunger, but insulin is your primary fat storage hormone. It's going to tell your body to store fat. The way hormones work, it's kind of like a lock and key mechanism. You know, keys work because they have a certain cut to them. There's a key here. You know, that has a very specific cut. It's going to fit just into its specific lock, and when it does, you open the door. Same with hormones. They float around and they find their receptor on the cell membrane and they hook in, and when they do, something happens at the DNA level. It tells you to turn this gene on, turn this gene off, do this, do that. And insulin, when it hooks in, it tells you to store fat, store fat, store fat. We don't get fat by eating fat. We get fat by eating food that spikes our fat storage hormones, and insulin's your primary fat storage hormone. So you're telling yourself to store fat, and then you're crashing your blood sugar back down, so you're hungry again, so it drives hunger. When you spike insulin like this, it drives inflammation, blocks the thyroid from working right. A number of things that are not good for you when you're spiking your insulin up and down, up and down. So the foods on this list, the Bali list, lower that insulin, keep you at a nice, even curve. And again, I'm using the Bali as an example because I just like the acronym. It helps you remember why you're eating what you're eating. And it will help you categorize foods in general when you're out and about. You know, you're at a friend's house, you're at a party, you're at a restaurant, or you're shopping at the grocery store. You can kind of remember the idea behind this. But again, it's similar to paleo, Mediterranean, you know, the Weston A. Price, all these kind of diets. It's all about eating real food is what I'm getting at. So don't get too caught up in the label, but I do want you to realize why you're eating what you're eating. So that's a basic concept here. We want to keep our blood, help our body to keep our bloodstream more alkaline, because bacteria, virus, fungus, and cancer love acidic bloodstream. Antifungal, antioxidant, keep the critter population down by eating foods that have critter controllers in them, have the antifungal properties in them. Antioxidants, you know, I'm not big on supplements. You know, as far as loading up on a bunch of antioxidant supplements, I'd rather you get it in your food. That's the way God intended it to be. And then the low insulin. These insulin spikes are what's driving the whole metabolic crisis in America as far as hypertension, high cholesterol, diabetes, obesity, all that stuff is driven by these insulin spikes. So we want to stay away from that. All right, so real quick, we want to give you some examples of some foods here that you can eat. And remember, I mean, some of y'all might be watching this for the first time and just thinking, you know, I'm healthy, and, you know, why would I want to change my diet? You know, I was healthy when I changed my diet, and my brothers would ask me, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? There's nothing, you know, you don't have any disease or problem. But it's because I started getting educated. I started learning all this stuff and learning that these insulin spikes I was doing wasn't beneficial for me. And I know that, you know, the heart attack and bypass surgeries and strokes and dementia and stuff like that my grandfathers had, those things didn't just come out of nowhere when they were 80 years old or 65 years old. These processes are started 20 and 30 years in advance. And it's this kind of inflammation that underlies every disease that maybe won't hit you for 20 years. We don't want to wait for the bomb to go off. So the more you get educated, so watch more of the videos, use some of the resources we recommend, read some books, and just start understanding that your food needs to be your medicine. That's the way God intended for it to be. You know, you're made of about, it's debatable, but around 70 trillion cells. Well, these cells aren't the same cells that you were born with. These cells die. Your hamstring cell, your heart cell, your eyeball cell, your blood, your red blood cells, all your cells die all the time. Red blood cells die in 90 days. Your gut lining dies every 4 days. You build new ones. So you're constantly remodeling. You remodel your bones. I mean, even the nerves can regenerate. So when you go to make a new cell, how does your body know how to do that? The recipe book, the instructions are in your DNA. But then your raw materials, you get that from basically what you eat. Your liver is where we store a lot of this. It's kind of your pantry that has all your ingredients in it. So that's how your body knows how to make these new cells. So what you put in your mouth matters. I didn't learn this too much in medical school. I got 1 hour of nutrition in medical school. So I came out of med school not knowing anything about any of this. And it turns out this is what really gets people well. So we won't get into why I didn't learn any of that. But bottom line is your doctor probably doesn't know much of this stuff because he just wasn't taught. Doesn't mean he's a bad guy or that he's trying to keep you sick. He's doing what he was trained to do, which is give you a blood pressure pill if you have high blood pressure. I mean, he may mention you need to exercise and try to eat right, but as far as really pushing you on that and showing you how and teaching you why and giving you the details, we're not too good at that because we weren't trained in that. So that's why I'm doing this video, so you understand the why behind what you're doing. So some examples. If you've come to see us and you got diabetes that's out of control and you've got a bunch of diseases going on and you're kind of a train wreck, we may encourage you to get real strict and go no grain, no sugar, no fruit for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, to drop your insulin to 0 to really wipe the fungus out quickly. But others, you're not sick, you're just wanting to sort of transition into this. So sort of pick and choose how aggressive you want to be. These are just some examples. One of the hardest things is drinks. People get so hooked on their different drinks, from Coke to sweet tea to cappuccino, latte, frappe, kind of coffees. So I know drinks are one of the hardest things to change at first. Fizzy drinks in particular, people just love that carbonation. Fine, do some Perrier. It's a natural lemon lime flavor. There's no artificial stuff, and it's just water basically that's carbonated. Or you can make your own flavored carbonated drink if you want to. There's a SodaStream, My SodaStream. I think Google that or look at their website, sodastream.com, I think it is. You make your own soda at home. Now, I don't recommend the flavors that kind of come in the package with it. Go on their website, look under their natural flavors, and they have some natural raspberry and cranberries and lemon lime and stuff like that. Stevia is fine as a sweetener, but everything else, sucralose, aspartame, that's NutraSweet and Splenda, don't recommend it at all. But you can make your own. Get some pomegranate concentrate. I got this one at Drug Emporium. I'm sure you can get it online or at other stores. It's just pure pomegranate. When you look on the ingredients, it just says pomegranate concentrate. And then you look, and there's no other ingredients. So mix a little bit of that, like a teaspoon even. I mean, it's stout stuff. Remember, dark and bitter, that is good. That's the antifungal, antioxidant chemicals. So I would mix a little bit of this in some ice water and put a little stevia or a little bit of xylitol. These are the sweeteners that I like to use. Xylitol is a sugar alcohol. It just stays in the gut. It doesn't absorb into the body. It doesn't have the glycemic spike on it and the sugar spike on it. Some people, this will upset their tummy a little bit, give them a little gas, so go easy on that. I don't use it too much anymore because I really like coconut sugar. It's one of my favorite ones, especially in the baking goods, baking products. Mixed in my coffee. Now, one thing you'll notice when you're on a high sugar diet, which you are if you're eating standard American, you may not realize it, but sugar's in everything. It's in your spaghetti sauce, in your ketchup, in your potato chips. It's in everything. So you get hooked on this sweet taste. Your brain's hooked on it. Your taste buds are hooked on it. Your gut's hooked on it because the yeast are driving you to eat it too. So as you come off of that, your taste buds change. Initially, this isn't going to taste near as sweet, obviously, as cane sugar. But as your taste buds change, this suffices really good for me. Back to the drinks. Perrier water, pomegranate. Do some coffee. Coffee's antifungal. It's great. It's antioxidant. I'd go easy on it though. A cup or two. You get up into that 4, 5, 6 cups a day. You're getting so much stress on your adrenal glands. Your cortisol, your fight or flight hormones are really kind of stressed out if you do too much caffeine. But in general, coffee's fine. You can Google Bulletproof Coffee. Look up, I forget the guy's name that came up with this. It's really, really good. Basically, you brew your coffee, put it into a blender, and put some coconut oil and some real butter, especially if it's grass-fed. I really like grass-fed real butter. And you just blend it up, and it becomes this frothy, kind of thicker, creamy drink. Spice it up: cinnamon, nutmeg, cocoa. Pure chocolate's antifungal. The problem is we take that chocolate, send it to Hershey, Pennsylvania. We Dutch it, put all that sugar in it. Now we're feeding yeast. We're spiking our sugar. So just straight chocolate's good. If you need to sweeten it a little bit, the xylitol, the stevia, or coconut sugar. But Learn to doctor up your drinks. You know, you can just get a straight cup of coffee and, you know, that's fine. It's antifungal, antioxidant, nothing wrong with that. But the more you can doctor that thing up, coconut oil, very antifungal, and in a minute we'll talk about healthy fats, which this is one of them. We need healthy fats. So learn to get a little more in what you're drinking and what you're eating. Cinnamon's antifungal. So whenever you can add these things in, not just for the taste, but also for their health benefits, it'd be really good. Kombucha, you can buy these at the store. These are fermented drinks. The probiotics we talked about, we're diminishing and killing and harming our probiotics all the time by living in America. Look at my other video for details on that, but fermented foods and fermented drinks are really good. You can make it yourself at home pretty easy. Look online for some recipes, or The Funky Kitchen has a book that talks about fermenting foods too. So those are some drinks, but just pure water. I mean, we don't drink enough water. Everybody's dehydrated. Hydration's key. So it's fine, just drink some water too. We always forget about that. We think we have to have all these different flavors and sweeteners, and you don't need that. The second hardest thing I've found for people is chips. People love to crunch. They love to snack. You know, salsa's great. Salsa's got all the peppers. Anything that's spicy, bitter, sour, all these different flavors. Those, if it's spicy, bitter, sour, it's antifungal, basically. So all the different ethnic, you know, Thai food and Mexican food, and these are really, really good for you. So have your guacamole, have your salsa, but get the ones that don't have sugar. I don't think I brought the example, but there's, you know, most of the store-bought salsas have sugar in them, but there's some that don't. You just flip the label and read. Xylitol here in Lubbock is one that doesn't have sugar. But Bonitos, that's a chip, black bean chip. You also have pinto bean and white bean. The white bean ones are pretty much like a restaurant chip, like a tortilla chip, but they're made with the beans. Hummus chips, there's sweet potato chips, there's other veggie chips. And those are, you know, some good ideas as you're transitioning off the grain and the bad oil kind of chips. Some other transitional stuff, sprouted grain breads like Ezekiel bread, sprouted grains, they don't spike your sugar as much. So this is an okay kind of transition food. This is a pizza crust. You make your own pizza at home with Udi's gluten-free pizza, but what I like even better than this is the cauliflower crust. We may have a video of that online, or look on our Facebook page, or just Google. I think it's called the world's best pizza crust on YouTube. And it's basically made with cauliflower. It's awesome. And one more thing about gluten-free. I mean, this isn't going to spike your sugar as much, and it's obviously doesn't have the gluten in it. That gluten's that foreign protein that drives inflammation. But you got to be careful with gluten-free muffins and gluten-free this and that, because they take the wheat out, but then they put some other flours in that may still spike the sugar. Tapioca flour, potato starch, you know, corn. These things will still spike the sugar, so you got to be careful on the gluten-free thing. But it can be a good transitional item. And there's gluten-free pizzas. You know, you want to go out and have a pizza, get the gluten-free one. Brown rice pasta. This is kind of an easy substitute as you're transitioning. You can just pull out your old wheat noodles and put in the brown rice pasta noodles. Get you some spaghetti sauce like this one. There are spaghetti sauces that don't have sugar. Just learn to flip these things over and read the ingredients. So this one says imported Italian San Marzano tomatoes. And second ingredient, tomatoes. Then fresh onions, extra virgin olive oil, salt, basil, white pepper. And that's it. Those are all foods that you know what they are. They're God food. Yeah, they've been processed, some to be put into a jar, but there's no added artificial stuff, as opposed to some of the kind of regular old ragu, prego kind of things. Go look on those. There's high fructose corn syrup, there's sugar, there's other things. So, I mean, that's an easy meal, brown rice pasta. Get you some spaghetti sauce. It's not crazy. It's not hard to do. But I would caution you against doing Ezekiel bread toast in the morning with a bunch of honey on it, and then, you know, for lunch having a gluten-free pizza, then for supper having some brown rice pasta. We want to move away from having so much starch, even if it's kind of the more legal or healthier starches. We want to move away from doing that so much, and you really get the veggies, nuts, seeds, eggs, clean meats, more than we want these gluten-free kind of things. Speaking of eggs, very nutritious, very beneficial. Some people are egg sensitive if you've got a gut that's really inflamed, you've got leaky gut. Your probiotics are totally shot. You may be reacting to eggs, so occasionally we'll hold people off eggs. But in general, especially once you're healed, you're in maintenance phase, eggs are a great source of nutrition. You can do so much with them: boil them, fry them, poach them, omelets. Breakfast burritos, just throw it in a cup. That's what I did this morning. I was in a hurry, ran to Stripes, get a burrito in a bowl or in a cup, and just chunk the tortilla. Kamut flour, K-A-M-U-T. This is a type of flour that's utilizing the old ancient wheat. Doesn't spike the sugar quite as much, but it still has gluten in it, but it's the ancient gluten. Most people that are gluten sensitive are really reacting to the new gluten that's in this new wheat. It's from the 1970s and on. We find that when you can really heal the gut, occasional ancient gluten, a lot of people can tolerate it. If you're healthy already and just looking to make some simple changes, once you're done with your flour bin's empty, get you some of this Kamut flour instead. It pretty much can sub right in like traditional flour. But again, I'd caution you against doing tons of any kind of flour every day. And if you're off gluten, don't even use that at all. Especially if we advise you to be no grains. Obviously, you don't want any grains. But coconut flour, almond flour, these aren't grains. There's a great cookbook I'd recommend for everybody called Against All Grains. She's got a good blog and website, but she uses coconut flour a lot and almond flour. These are really good. You can make pancakes, make cookies, make cakes. So just because you're going to eat to nourish you and eat to benefit your health doesn't mean you have to miss out on a lot of things. All right, some more drinks. I kind of skipped over these when we were doing the drinks. Green tea, black tea, and white tea. Those are your most antifungal teas. So learn to drink some of those. Coconut water is really good. There's lots of different brands. I don't really prefer the taste too much, but there's one called Cocoa Hydro that tastes better to me. And they come in these little packets too, like the powder you just mix with a bottle of water and shake it up. So easy to transport. Cocoa Hydro. The coconut waters in general, their electrolyte balance is almost identical to your serum in your bloodstream, so that's really good. Real butter, coconut oil, olive oil. This is balsamic vinegar, but it's a good salad dressing, but we want the good oils, and this is one of the best ones. Eat it by the spoonful, put it in your coffee, put it on your Ezekiel bread toast, scramble your eggs in it, stir fry your veggies in it. We need good fats, and we're sorely lacking in good fats. So fish oil is a way to get good fat. Grass-fed beef. Cows were meant to eat grass. When you eat cows that were eating grass, you're getting good omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. When you eat cows that are in a feedlot eating grain, you get this really high omega-6 ratio. We don't need that. So it's not the red meat necessarily is bad. It's what was that red meat eating before you butchered it. So venison and bison, buffalo, and beef that are eating grass, no problem in my book. Coconut milk, almond milk, great for recipes. Put it in your coffee instead of creamer, really good for you. Almond butter instead of peanut butter is better. Chia seed, you don't have to grind up chia seed. You can eat it straight. Your body can digest it. Flax seed, you got to grind that stuff to get all the nutritional value out of it. Tons of omegas, good calcium, good protein. Put it in your steel-cut oats, put it on your salad, put it in your smoothie, whatever you're making, doctor it up with chia seed. When you have to buy stuff out of a can, which I don't recommend a lot, but flip the can over and read. Like these tomatoes. When you read on here, it just says fire roasted tomatoes, sea salt, and citric acid. That's it, nothing else. That's okay, that's God food. Same with the black beans. I prefer you get a package, cook them yourself, but when you can, get organic. If you have to get out of a can, it's not the worst thing in the world. Bragg's liquid amino, we use this instead of soy sauce in a lot of our recipes. Works good. You'll see a lot of the paleo cookbooks uses coconut aminos, Bragg's liquid aminos, you kind of interchange. If you have to buy some jelly, they do make some without sugar. This one has fruit syrup as a sweetener, so that still has sugar in it, but when you read the label, it's only 8 grams of sugar. Try to keep your sugar in the single digits. If you have to do it in moderation, but read your labels, get single digits on the sugar. Honey, you want local, raw, dark honey that you can't see through. The darker the honey, the better. That real light honey that's been so processed, not as good. For those of you who can do dairy, Greek God yogurt's probably your only yogurt I'd recommend. All the other yogurts spike your sugar too much. The sugar content on this one is 5 grams of sugar in the plain Greek God yogurt. The honey one's got like 20 or 30 grams of sugar. Buy the plain one, add a little bit of your own honey, put the chia seed in, put the berries into it, doctor it up. Spry gum. It's gum. Chew 5 pieces a day, reduce your cavities by 80%. That was a study they did on kids. It uses xylitol as a sweetener, so there's Spry toothpaste and all kinds of Spry products, but they're using the xylitol. So that's just a real quick, brief overview of some ideas. Come to some of our classes, look at online on some of our other cooking stuff and demonstrations and recipes, and you'll get more ideas. But just remember, BALI, we want to be basic, antifungal, antioxidant, and low insulin. So don't freak out, don't stress out, just eat real food. That's how God designed us.